I will just kick it off and say hello to everybody. We have 4 participants on, 5 participants on. So I think we should probably get started here sooner than later. My name is Ann Johnson, and I'm the project manager for this class, working with Tracy Jackson, who will introduce herself shortly. But the instructors for today are Ross Gentink and Jeff Stewart from PE Services. Ross is the host, and so he'll be recording this, and Jeff will be managing the chat and making sure that we have questions answered, etc. I'll send out an evaluation, and we already sent you all the tools already. So I hope out of the kindness of your heart, you will submit the evaluation. And with that, I'm going to let Tracy say good morning, and you guys are in charge. So I'm going to mute myself and rush back in. All right.
All right. Thanks, Ann.
Thanks. Yep. Bye. Thank you, Ross. I really appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
All right. And thank you, Ann. This is Tracy. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tracy Jackson. It's kind of fun having the lunch hour meeting. I think this time works really well for a lot of us. But I'm on my iPhone today, but I want to welcome everybody. I'm super excited about this class. Who has issues with human resources? I think we all do, whether it's employees or what is going on here or how to handle that. I was really excited because this is like our first time hosting this class through MnDOT. You may have heard it through other places, but in regards to developing your team, and a lot of our small businesses are usually that one man or one woman show running their business, doing everything. And this, I hope to get the conversation out. Who is that first employee that you do hire, and how do you find the right person to do the right tasks so you can focus on your expertise in your area of business? So with that being said, we have a few more classes and networking events available. I'm going to put in the chat. Give me a little bit. Once I get onto my computer, I will do this. And I will add the events page where you can sign up for additional classes and networking. We'd love to see you there. Thanks. And I'll pass it over to Jeff and Russ.
Right. Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. So we'll start out again like we have with a lot of these other classes. If we want to run through everybody that's here, it's always good to see there's new people and some new businesses that always show up to these. So if you could go through, we're going to go through each person and let us know your business, how long you've been in business, and how many employees you have, and then obviously your name. We'll see that written down, but so we'll run through everybody that's on the call, and hopefully a few more join as we get going here. Sandy, do you want to start out and give a little bit of your name, your business, how long you've been in business, and how many employees you have?
Yeah. Yep. My name is Sandy Milners. I am a partner and founder of MnD Collaborative. We're a landscape architecture and planning firm. We're a women-owned business. We've been around for almost a year. June 13th is our sort of 1-year anniversary, so it's coming up here. There's 4 of us founding partners, and then we have 3 staff members underneath us.
Oh, very exciting. It sounds like you're definitely on a path with creating a successful business. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thank you.
Yeah. Rose, do you want to go next? All right, not hearing Rose. We'll move down to Michelle.
I'm Michelle Call with Kismet Consulting. I've been in business since last August, and I'm working on trying to hire employees. So I don't have any currently.
All right, that sounds great. Also in an exciting and hardworking spot of a new business. That's
Yes.
good to hear. Hopefully we have some tips and pointers, and maybe talk about a few things that roadblocks or speed bumps Jeff and I have gone through that help you guys keep growing on your business. Next one here, Ashley, would you like to give an update on your
Hi,
business?
this is
And
Katie, Ashley, and Tanya, and
Oh.
Rose all posted in the chat that they can't unmute themselves, but they introduced themselves in the chat.
Oh,
I just saw
All
it
right.
pop up, so
No, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I mean, since I'm unmuted, I'm happy to introduce myself if that works.
Yep,
Yep.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Katie Sorensen. I work for Total Lawn Care and Landscape in Southern Minnesota. We've been in business roughly since I'm not positive on the year. I want to say between 2009, 2011. And we have roughly 50 employees. We're always just looking to expand because we are a seasonal company. So always just looking for extra tips and help. So I'm happy to be here and see if I can get any tips.
Yep, yeah, perfect. Katie, I think we'll hopefully hit on a few things. Probably feel free to give us any feedback on your experience too. That there's these classes are never as interactive as you would like them to be, but you all have experiences that definitely will help the team grow too. So feel free to weigh in on anything that you've had that's exciting or interesting related to what we're talking about. So Sue is the last one that I'm seeing on here. Sue, do you want to give an update?
Oh, hi, I'm Sue Love. I work for MnDOT Office of Civil Rights, and I do the communications and marketing. And so I'm here because I'm interested in the topic, but I'm also here. I don't have my own business or anything, so
Yep.
I'm just here to learn what I can learn.
Yep, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, same thing with you. If you weigh in on anything that you have that experiences that you've had working with some of these small businesses, and always open to hear more advice there.
so
Okay.
I'll just read off some on the chat. So Ashley says that she works for Camacho Contractors, and they've been in business for 35 years and have roughly 13 employees. And Tanya Edwards is with Gemcraft Contracting. It's a new company, and so I'm guessing there's no employees with that. And
Yeah, it looks like it. Rose didn't give us any more. That's fine.
That's right. She's the office manager. This is from last time, office manager, and they have legal services as their business line.
All right, that sounds good. Anybody else join that we've missed on the introductions? Look like it. All right, we'll get going. So human resources issues and employment law. We're probably, to start out, we'll talk a little bit about a lot about employment and employment law. We're not giving legal advice by any stretch. We're here to talk through some of the resources available. We'll show you some of the resources we've used in our business, and we'll talk through kind of situational things. And I think it'll be good to see what we do. Like I said, we don't give legal advice here. There are times that it's best to contact an attorney or somebody that understands your specific situation and the uniqueness of your company. So we'll go through what's included in HR. So big picture, we're going to talk about hiring, maybe a little bit about firing, a few points here and there, but talk through kind of how to hire a person. So job description, how you could post for jobs, how you could network for jobs, a few things like that. We'll actually go through an exercise on putting together a job description and kind of, what you're looking for the person to do, what qualifications, and then maybe talk through a little bit on just key points of putting together what that job posting might look like. Talk through performance reviews at a fairly high level, some payroll taxes, withholding requirements, benefits and training. So a lot of that gets into the employee piece. I mean, the HR thing really is employee based. If it's one person or a couple of principals that are all owners in the company, you can run pretty loose on what you do. But as you get into hiring your first employee and working your way through all of those pieces, it definitely brings you up into and adds, when you add employees, it brings you to a new world of trying to stay on top of a lot of regulations and a lot of needs by your employees and a lot of things that'll help your business function in a way that tries to keep you out of trouble. I guess that's really a big focus of all the HR things, is that there's requirements by laws, whether they're taxes or just how you run your business and what you can and can't do, to whether it's discrimination wise or whether it's employee training or benefits or bonuses, things like that. As you get bigger, those things really need to be thought through and policy be developed with them. So hiring and firing. So kind of the first category here to talk a little bit about is really the hiring piece. So as you try to grow your business, there's really 4 different categories for bringing on a person to help your company grow. And hiring an employee is definitely one way to do it. That's not the only way, though. That's what most of us traditionally have gone through. Probably before you started your company, you worked somewhere and you were able to go find an employee, or you went and found an employer and worked your way into working for a business. So that's the one most of us are familiar with, kind of looking at a job posting and hiring. And so we'll talk a little bit more, like I said, about an exercise to look at how to hire, what pieces to talk through. The next option for bringing on people to help you work is hiring a contract worker. So, when it comes to running your small business, it's really important to think through who you hired and who's going to help grow your business. And contract workers are definitely an option, especially if you hire them on a project basis. If you use them for different situations that you're not prepared to pay somebody maybe annually or every week or every 2 weeks for year round, but you have a project that's going to last 5 months or 3 months or something. And there are plenty of people in the professional world that you can find that'll help you with a specific project or a specific season, maybe that more work is required. So when you're looking at hiring a contract worker, they're responsible for paying their own taxes. They're not eligible for benefits such as healthcare insurance, paid time off. So some of that stuff, it's essentially the overhead they're required to provide themselves. They might even provide their own computer. They might provide everything, their own vehicle. And then they typically make an hourly rate that would compensate them similar fashion as an employee, only it's going to be a lot higher because they're going to have to hire their own health insurance, vehicle, computers, other things that are necessary for that role. So that's one thing to think about. They are flexible, they are good, but there may be a cost there that you have to understand, that if you're paying your employees $30 an hour, contract worker might want $50 an hour because they have to cover a lot of those other costs. And there's benefits to that. And ideally they're cost competitive with the market, and you can usually get people that it makes sense to hire them in the short term. The other thing with contractor, and really all these contractors, subcontracting or even a temp services, allows you to bring in specialized talent just for short periods. So you may have the ability to do one specific task with you and maybe a couple of your employees. And if you want somebody who's specialized, you might go pick out that person and just hire them on a temporary basis if you just need them for one project, or again, like I said, kind of seasonally. So let's look here.
And then you're gonna
So,
talk about subcontracting too. So for instance,
Yep.
if you wanted to partner with someone else and actually share the overall contract with them, that would be a subcontracting scenario. So for instance, if you needed help with let's say a specialized design or something like that, that you needed to have a licensed mechanical engineer or something helping you with a project, you could subcontract with a company that has that skill set, and then be able to invoice. They would invoice you, and then you would invoice the prime contractor. Then you wouldn't have, they wouldn't be a direct employee of your firm. They'd be an employee of some other firm, and that's another way to add benefit or add to your offering within the company.
yep, yeah, exactly. So that's subcontracting. And if you're hiring a contract worker, a detraction from both of these is you have less control over the work and maybe the schedule, coordinating availability, but there's a lot of benefit to hiring expertise just on a temporary basis, depending on your industry. If you're working for a DOT client, they don't usually let you mark up your subcontractors, but if you're working, in the landscape world, or you're working in the professional world for a non-DOT client, oftentimes you can mark up your subcontractor, so you're still getting at least some money to help manage that person and still making some profit off that portion of the contract. But as far as DOT work and other agencies, a lot of times they don't allow markups on the subcontractor. So then you're better with the 1099 worker, because your company will make direct profit off of it.
Hi,
So
this is,
go
I
ahead.
have my hand up. Can I make a comment as you guys are talking about subcontracting and contracted workers?
Yep, for sure.
Okay, so I fully support the, subcontracting and the 1099s as needed. When this happens, just be mindful in the DBE program or the targeted group. If you are working on a DOT or another agencies that's requiring goals, be mindful, because if you're subcontracting or you are hiring a 1099, okay, let's start with 1099 first, your contracted worker. As long as you're managing and controlling and giving that direction of that worker, that is fine with the DBE program. In regards to subcontracting, if you are not subcontracting to a DBE, but a non-DBE, then you cannot count those dollars towards that DBE goal or TGB, whatever goal it might be. So just to be a little bit careful when you're thinking about subcontracting, this is where we encourage teaming and working with other DBEs or TGBs that work in that. But if you're not in that, then it's not necessary to, if it's not a DBE goal or TGB goal, then you don't really have to deter or make that difference of whether you're hiring a non-DBE or a DBE. Did that make
Perfect,
sense?
Tracy. Yeah, that's good advice. Definitely worth thinking about that if you're providing or if you're winning a project or providing a DBE requirement on a project, that you can't go pick a bigger company to back you. That definitely makes sense. 1099 employees, I'll talk a little bit more about this, and I do have a little experience, not personally, but from a good friend of mine that owns a construction company. He actually ended up getting in trouble with all of his employees or maybe you don't call them employees. All of them were 1099 employees. And there's a certain point here. So I pulled up, there's this little link I got here that you guys we'll send out the final presentation and you guys will get updates to some of these links. But the Employment and Economic Development, Minnesota Employment and Economic Development Office defines who is an employee, and there's common law employees. So you might not even hire a person as an actual employee. You might think they're a 1099 employee, or could even be a subcontractor, not typically, but it's more the 1099s. But if a person is functioning as an employee, as you're directing, or they're actually focusing under this common law employment, they if they're in control of the premises. So let's say you have a 1099 supervisor that's running a construction site, or running for a landscape company, or running, they're the principal PM on a job that's doing design or architecture. They may be a 1099 employee if you keep them segregated enough and kind of in an individual bucket. But if you have them working as in control of the property, if they have the right to hire and move people around, they're in control of furnishing the materials and tools, the mode of payment, if you pay them on a regular basis, they're more likely to be considered an employee. So, then they fall under a lot of other categories that we're going to talk about here. But then you start getting into, you should be paying unemployment insurance and workman's comp and things like that, that are insurances that you get away from if you're a 1099 employee. So really think that one through. And it's worth going to this link and just reading through who's an employee and just getting familiar with you don't want to be on the wrong side of it, because I know the employer that I had talked to or was friends with, that he ended up having to go back and back pay a whole bunch of wages and insurance and pay everybody's taxes for him, and so it ended up being kind of a mess. Workman's comp insurance, and so.
Can you drop that link in the chat, please?
Yep, yeah, I can grab it here somewhere. One or the other, it should let me copy it.
I'll try to do it too, Ross.
All right, yeah, I should be able to right click and copy.
You can copy or just go to the web page, copy the URL and drop it.
Oh yeah, yep, perfect. That's a good way. Thank you. Chat. All right, I threw that in the chat. We should be good to go. Like I said, as you're looking at different options to hire employees, it's definitely worth thinking through that. Temp services, not a bad way to hire employees. It's kind of interesting in the professional world. In the civil world, we don't see a ton of that. There maybe are some people that chase large jobs and stuff like that. I was surprised to learn that the law firms, it's actually not uncommon to hire temporary attorneys through a placement agency or some version of that. So, and then obviously there's temp workers for accounting and admin and even labor, things like that. Some placement agencies that focus on the manual labor and kind of less design specific type fields, but it's a good option. I mean, there's a service of temp or temporary to hire, full time. There's some options there. Tend to be a little bit more expensive from what I've seen. We've looked at it for some in previous projects that we've gone after out of state. We've looked at temporary employees for like I said, that are local to certain areas, but it doesn't tend to be, we haven't found it to be as cost effective. That we typically would give up all of our profit. And so it doesn't always make the most sense from what I've seen, but there are definitely, like I said, as you get into accounting, you get into some labor, that it makes sense to use temp services to kind of give trials on people. You almost use them like a long-term
on the job
interview.
training.
Yeah, or on the job training. Yeah, exactly. So then you can quickly and easily staff gaps without long-term commitments or without hiring full-time people. That there's a lot of things that go with it. However, you also have less control over quality of the worker. A lot of times they send people and you don't like them and you'll send them out, and then they'll send you another person and you might have to cycle through, especially as you get into more administrative and kind of labor type categories that you might look at people, maybe their resume looks skilled, but they're primarily functioning. You might not like them. The personality conflicts are something that you'll move through people pretty quickly, or their work ethic isn't there, or there's a few that I've seen that we've experienced before. But yeah, so I mean, the key with all these, whichever one you pick, it's really important to prioritize finding reliable and trustworthy team members, who are committed to your business success. It might be really quick and easy to hire a 1099 employee or a hiring service, but they might not be very dedicated to what you're doing. I mean, you guys all, as business owners starting to build a business or looking to grow a business, it's really important to build a team for success. And if that means pulling in somebody for one of these roles for short term, that makes sense in some cases, but really you don't want your second employee maybe to be somebody that isn't as committed to your industry as you are. Subcontracting kind of helps that a lot of times because it tends to be somebody going the same direction as you that's also interested in using their resume to build a successful business. Even if it's even if you're doing construction and you do framing or you do landscape architecture or something, you hire an electrician to come do all the electrical work or something, that guy, he's looking to run a successful business also. So a lot of times they may align as a little more reliable and trustworthy. Something to think about anyway, that the kind of different types of hiring. So we're going to do a quick activity here. You guys have all of this. So we're going to just walk through and maybe spend 3 or 4 minutes here on who and what you would need to put together a job description or kind of a role to explain how it would work. So we got a Word document that you guys have sent out. So this activity is designed to help you determine if it's time for you to expand your company, or if so, how would you do it? Consider a task or tasks you need to accomplish in your company. List them below. So some advice that I'm learning and I've learned as I've gone through business over time is I've usually had a pretty good luck hiring people I know. That works out well. When you hire people you don't know, it's quite a bit harder, and a lot of times you just can't. But so the one thing I learned is that if you have a good job description and you have a list of duties that are repeatable, you can get, so people understand the expectations of what they're applying for, what they're hired for, and what they're going to do when they get there. You can build a model that's fairly repeatable by having a decent job description. Now, when you're small, people come in and they kind of maybe got to do everything, and it gets a little blurry. But as you work into building kind of key roles in your business, you want to think through what those roles look like and what those tasks look like. And you actually want to sit down and write like a job description. And you might even go further. You might write a job description, and then you might write a description of what day-to-day life is doing that job. If it's and get really detailed on it. Like if you have a receptionist, you might want to write how you want them to greet somebody when they answer or when somebody walks in your front door, or when the phone rings and they answer a phone call, whether it's a vendor, somebody trying to collect money, or a new prospective client. You may have different ways, but just kind of documenting how you want that position to function is really important for building consistency in your company. So if that person leaves or you're expanding that role, the next person understands the expectations and has pretty good guidelines on, okay, this is how if you're doing landscaping, this is how we do our landscaping. And it avoids people coming in and doing things a little bit different way. So the goal at the end of the day is your processes are developed so your end customer ideally, or your end user might be a project team developing something, but the experience is the same for your end users every time. And it's it seems like a lot of work and it seems like kind of a big picture thing to be thinking through, but the more as you try or as you work through growing your business, the more you can document and repeat things that provide the same benefit that you would expect for all of your clients. That's really important to allowing you to grow and not have to spend all day trying to clean up after people and spend all day training people over and over because they tend to just want to do it how they did it at the last company, or they're creating their own way. And it's like, no, we have a process that develops how I expect your business to run, and then you get your employees. They're usually fairly receptive if you're consistent and you have a good process, and they might provide feedback on how to improve that process, which is always part of the process and is good. But so this task of kind of what you do or what and who you'd need. So if you guys just run through it for a minute, think about the qualifications of a person you need to accomplish the tasks, and if the tasks could be accomplished by a person or by a service. For example, annual taxes can be accomplished with a service provider. Payroll can be accomplished with a service provider. That reviews these tasks that cannot be accomplished by a service provider and consider if you need to hire an employee or a contractor. Some tasks can be accomplished by either, such as an HR admin or part-time worker. Then think about the options you have to consider. Becoming an employee is the best solution. So as you work through this, we're all good at certain things, and it's really looking at what skills either you need to repeat because you have enough business that we need 2 or 3 or 4 people doing the same thing that I'm good at, or you look at it and you go, well, these are skills I don't have. And as they said, I could hire an accountant, even a company, Jeff and I with 35 people working with us, we could hire an accountant full time, but we really only need them for 10 hours a week or maybe 5 hours a week. And then instead we decide we consult for an accountant, and they maybe help us 2 hours a week or even less than that. And then we cover the rest of it. They probably help us like 2 to 4 hours a month, I would say in general. And then we do most of the rest of that work with defining the task. So, but at some point it's going to be more beneficial to bring more and more of that role in-house. So you just kind of spend a minute here and think through tasks and qualifications, whether it's a person or service, and whether you'd hire an employee for it, or you'd go out with a contractor or 1099 employee.
Yeah, so I think going through this exercise here will help you figure out who you think you need to enhance your company. And then when you write down the qualifications, then you can think about what kinds of skills that person needs to have, and that would help you then write a job description and maybe a job posting for that particular position, so that you can take that information and try to find that person that's going to help your firm. So Ross talked a little bit about service providers and so forth. So just for instance, our company, PE Services, has hired a professional employment organization. They're called PEO, and they actually assist us with payroll, and they also have an HR administration piece of that, and then they handle our benefits. So by doing that, then we don't have to have an HR person on our staff. We don't have to have a payroll person, except we have to provide the information to the payroll so they can run it. So that's what Ross is currently doing. So he provides the information to the payroll so that we can pay our company. And then they also help administer our health benefits. So by contracting with a service provider like that, they can take some of those tasks that you would normally have to have a dedicated person on your staff to do that if you were a large company. And it's really cost-effective way of doing that without having to hire that person. There's a fee associated with that, and then that fee ends up getting rolled into your overhead. So you end up paying for it through your overhead. So just a couple of ideas. But if you want to enhance your business by hiring somebody that's going to help you expand your business, then clearly this is the exercise we want to go through here. So I did notice a couple new people here. There's Shelley Binsfeld that joined us, and let's see, Adrian Bond, which they're from MnDOT. But I was wondering if Shelley, you could explain what your business is and how many employees you have.
Yes, I own Rockleaf Water Environmental. We're based out of Fridley area. We are 2.5 years along and growing very quickly. We have 13 on staff right now, and then we actually went through a big hiring period, and we're going to have 4 more people joining next week. We're going into a pretty busy season. And I am always wanting to learn more information. So I'm glad I'm in this class. As far as like environmental, we do a lot of different environmental parts. Definitely like with the rock, the geology part, then leaf, a lot of natural resource work. And then we're bringing on a water scientist for the water part of it. And then we do a lot of emergency response work throughout the state and the neighboring states.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
And then there's a Sandy that joined, I think, after we had our introductions. Sandy, can you tell us who you are?
I think I was the first one to introduce myself, actually.
Oh, well then
Oh, yeah.
I that's my mistake then. Sorry.
So
I can say hello quick too, since I kind of snuck in late. Hi, I'm Adrian Bond. I'm the Business and Program Development Manager with MnDOT's Office of Civil Rights. So with Tracy's team, I'm sure she introduced herself earlier. So welcome everybody, and this is great information. Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, thanks, Adrian. So one thing that, so as you develop these job descriptions, I mean, we all, most of you are running a business that you're obviously very skilled at a technical task or a project management task, something to build something or to design something or to provide some sort of service. We're all pretty much in a service or construction industry here. So as I go through and kind of look through, I mean, this worksheet's a good kind of defining a needs and what are things I don't want to do in my business that I want to hire out for, whether it's because I don't want to learn the expertise or I want to teach or I want somebody else that I add more value somewhere else. So I would hire those tasks. One of the easiest ways to start, and so this is just from our company's website, but we're looking at hiring a project engineer. So if you go to PD Services MN and you pick through our staff and down to where our job postings are, you can just go look at what other companies have for similar type roles, similar type responsibilities. So just some basic formatting stuff here is that you obviously have a role. So when you get to posting a job description and you're putting it on LinkedIn is an easy place to put it, or Indeed, I believe, costs money, or you're just your own website. They tend to show up on a Google search. If you're just posting them on your own website, there's ways to get some traffic that way too, kind of depending on the size of your industry. If you're competing against Walmart, you're probably not going to end up high on a search engine, but if you're competing against kind of the local people around here, it's something that might work. But so in a job description or a job posting, we'll usually start out talking about our company, and you don't always have to say, our company's been in business for over 25 years, which is nice and dandy. You don't always have to say that. You could say that, come work for our business and we have over 25 years experience or over 100 years of experience doing environmental work, throughout our staff. And so, but just something that says, hey, we're experts, or hey, we've been doing this for a long time. Come join our team. You can trust us. And then just another kind of generalized on our company and just some team growth, strong communication type company things. And then you get down into the meat of the job posting, right? That's actually like, this can be generic between all your job postings. And then you get down into responsibilities. And so, lead and assist construction staff on large complex projects, perform construction admin, just get into all the tasks and kind of what the day-to-day is. You might, and we don't, well, we do actually, I missed this one, but these skills, these are pretty generic. You can steal them off of other postings when you're going to do this. Go to LinkedIn and search for job postings of similar. Go to other companies' websites that do similar work to us, or to what you guys are doing, and it's pretty quick to create a job posting. You might trigger something in your head, or you might have a really good idea. If you're good at this kind of stuff, you might have a great idea of what you want, and when you fill out this table, it may just lead exactly to what this is. And you could even take your table here and break it down kind of into the categories that show up here, whether it's responsibilities, knowledge, skills, and abilities. And then candidates must have, right? There's some things that are just required. And then there's preferred qualifications that people may or may not have. But these are, kind of a good framework for putting together a job description and a job posting.
Yeah, and I think that's really good advice that Ross gave, and that you kind of list out the responsibilities almost like on a day-to-day basis, because that really helps frame the qualifications that you're looking for by what they're going to be doing on a daily basis.
As far as the exercise goes, I think, it's a template for you guys to use. Feel free to ask questions or share, or if you guys need help afterward, like as with all the other classes we're here, we can review a job description for you. We can help you get going if you're just stumped, things like that we are here to help too. So kind of keep that in mind. So you want to become an employer, so this is kind of where a lot of your younger businesses are. So know the law, know the law, so are your policies harmful? So first thing I would tell you is, as you become a lawyer, again, it might be pretty easy with one or two of you that are equal in the company. You're getting going, you're started. You probably don't need to be super formal, but as you get even your first employee, you need to start putting together some policies and thinking through the pieces of a business. What do I want my employee to do? What do I don't want them to do? What kind of qualifications do I want them to do? And the concept of discriminatory is really a big thing to always think about. A lot of times, people do things, and as we're setting up a business, or as we're executing a business on a day-to-day basis, things that are discriminatory by law, we might not even understand. I mean, obviously discrimination by race, all of the list of normal things, we all know that's the wrong direction to go to ever be successful. But there's a lot of things, like if you don't have a bonus policy and you give out bonuses, and you give one guy $1,000 and one guy $10,000, and they have the same role, there's a chance that the one guy could decide to sue you. Where if you have a bonus policy that's actually written out that says, we provide bonuses, it's based on merit, customer satisfaction, growth of our business, and pick out whatever, could be even attendance, right? Like depending on what level of employee. I know my a family member of mine owns a corporate daycare and they give attendance bonuses to people. You can't pick and choose who you give that to. You have to do things equally across people because you're opening up yourself to lawsuits if people don't feel like they're treated the same as the person next to them. Something to think about. And so we'll actually go through a manual here in a couple of minutes that'll give you guys a lot more background on policies that are harmful, discriminatory, and kind of what the government recommends and what the court cases have determined. That'll somewhat of a checklist that'll help you stay out of trouble. Think through what benefits you're offering. I think, Jeff, you probably know better. You don't have to offer benefits till you hit what, like 50 people?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I think until you hit 50, you don't have to. But
if you want to compete with those firms that are 50 or more, you have to be able to offer this similar benefits.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Is that if you treat your employees in a way that you're not giving them benefits and you're making their compensation, total compensation is less than they would get somewhere else, you're probably not going to get as high a quality employee as you'd like. But still worth to think about what benefits will you offer. Are there government programs to help with benefits? Are there government programs with helping? So there's a lot of opportunity for small business. I know we went after a grant for technology advancement, and I mean we not a huge dollar value, but we got a check for $3,500 to advance technology in our company, and we're using it to buy a better invoicing system. But so there's money out there for some of these things. But anyway, you think about what benefits you want to offer, what's required. And then understanding workman's comp and unemployment insurance, definitely something that you need to understand. And probably as you get into payroll, it's going to be worth getting a payroll company because they'll handle this for you. Our payroll company, I don't know if this is standard or not, but we roughly pay a little over $1,000 a year, I think, per employee for our payroll service, which might sound like a lot of money, but they do a ton for us. They do. Jeff and I worked through termination of an employee last fall, and they at no other extra charge, just part of the HR service that we pay for. They helped with writing the severance letter. They helped with determining that the termination met all of the laws and regulations, and reviewed everything and kind of checked out a lot of those boxes that are HR boxes that most of us have very little experience with as a small business. As you know, in our world, in the civil world, trying to run a small business, we're not always well versed in those. So really providing that resource to give us advice when we need it. Paid family medical leave, definitely one to think about. There's a lot of companies that are giving more and more of that, and so constantly thinking through how your benefits should evolve or what they should include as you start a new business. Another one kind of on the radar there.
So Ross, we should probably talk about as you get more and more employees, they need to have a guide, if you will, for those employees, and developing an employee handbook. I think that's one of the resources we sent out, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. So I can pull it up here. So we do have an example.
I'm actually on the call. It's activity 2.
Yep. Yeah. So I got that up on the screen now. So
I jumped ahead a little bit. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Like I told Jeff and I talked about this earlier this morning, and we kind of felt like there's a chance we go in circles on the slides. So because they're interactive, and there's some of them you get to and it's like, well, it's really that part, but it circles back on itself. And so, but no, this is a perfect time to talk about this, the activity and the employee handbook. So this is a template of an employee handbook that we actually got from a vendor that we worked with in the past. And it's a template. We end up modifying it for our business. Um, you know, and so there's a lot of different pieces you can hit on here. You know, like it says here, we recommend that a business owner have a lawyer review this. In our case, we actually had our payroll company, which has attorneys on staff and they have a strong HR department, people that went to college for HR and have lots of years and they go to classes to learn every year all the changes in regulation. They actually helped us at no extra charge, as part of what they offer as as they call the PPO, Jeff.
Yeah, PEO, Professional
PEO.
Employment Organization, PEO.
Yeah, there you are. Pretty easy to find if you want. There's some local, there's some agencies that help you find them, and their pricing is pretty competitive or based on the size of your company. So if you have a small company, they're pretty reasonable. If they're a larger company, they're also fairly reasonable for the service provided, but they can handle a 1 or 2 person company, or they can handle a 25 or a 50 or 1,000 person company.
Yeah,
One
of the benefits the PEO helped us with is our company does a lot of construction observation, and we needed to have a safety manual to kind of help our staff in the field, and they helped us develop this 50-page, I think it's about 50-page safety manual for all the types of situations that our employees would be in, and that was part of their service. So we spent hours and hours and hours developing the manual, and now we have it, and that was a real benefit to having a PEO for us.
Yep, and I have a contract this morning, Jeff, that I signed that requires to our safety plan. So we're doing work on a bridge here in Minnesota, and we're doing inspection on a bridge here in Minnesota, and the contract requires us to submit our company safety plan that covers that work type. So perfect example of a good use and something that you might have to develop from a HR kind of safety world, that if your clients start requiring it. So there's some good options there, though, to understanding.
So there's a question in the chat here, Ross. This is from Rosa. Does Minnesota require employers to have DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion policy in place?
I don't believe that it requires it, but I think that's just part of the staying out of trouble and the discriminatory piece. I think if you do certain types of government work, and maybe Tracy or Adrian can talk more to that, but if you do certain types of government work, I know you're required to have a policy and be an equal opportunity employer, which I think most of them are now. So I was going to pull up another website here. So this is actually a manual. Let me go back here. Well, that manual is, I guess, a good spot to start. So this is a manual on, and you guys have this, I believe, was sent to you. It's also online, but Employer's Guide to Employment Law Issues in Minnesota. So you already have a link to this. I can throw it in the chat too, real quick. And you do have a PDF of this also that Ann sent out earlier today. But this is a pretty good document for starting a small business. So it's an employer's guide to employment law issues, but it's really more than that. It starts out with a great introduction on the hiring process. Some of the stuff we talked about, some of it, but this is really developed to help small businesses get off the ground and be successful. And so, it goes as far as out of town, the recruiting candidates and affirmative action and background checks. As we go, and maybe I'll just pull them up. The screen is big enough to go side by side, but a lot of this that's covered in there we also put in our employee handbook. How much of it I get on the screen here? But you talk about background checks and you go, do you want background checks in your company? Maybe, maybe not. Do you do work at schools, or do you do work somewhere that they might require them? So you might do them on all your employees, and you're just able to send that notice out real quick. Pre-employment testing. Again, some of this gets discriminatory where you can't just do a background check on people you think look shady. You either have to do it for everybody or you don't. You could get into some hiring practices that are discriminatory without doing things consistently. Drug and alcohol testing. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, the drug and alcohol testing, a lot of times it's if you have employees that are going to operate heavy equipment, that's might be a requirement to do that on a have that policy in your employee handbook.
Yep, and your insurance companies might drive that, right? Like they might not provide insurance for certain construction activities if you don't have a policy on how you either hire and drug and alcohol test, or how you have an ongoing monitoring program. But kind of what does that look like? One good one with cell phones and company provided computers and stuff. That's always good to think about. We call it electronic communications and social media in our handbook, but notice of rights regarding personal files or personnel files. Sorry, but they have the right to their information, but like from an electronic communication standpoint, if they're using their company's cell phone for personal use, there's no privacy there at all. If they're using their company computer and they're doing private things on that, that's a good thing to talk about with employees, to understand that hey, we may take your computer at any time, and whether it's for we had a job that had some legal proceedings recently, and they didn't go and take our computers, but there was an opportunity there for the attorneys or the judge to go, okay, we want this wasn't a job our company, it was between the contractor and the owner, and we just happened to be an advisor or doing observation inspection for the project. So it wasn't a lawsuit against us, but still all of that information is discoverable that's on any sort of company device. So that's a good policy to think your way through. Social media, this is one that I have seen examples of where people get too political or too religious on sites that are maybe linked too close to your company. So so we try to monitor if they're posting things that directly link to our company. We try to monitor to make sure that it's in line with, we don't want things that discriminate against people or aggravate people because we're a consultant and want clients, right? So you can have social media policy that kind of guide what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Hours of operation. This isn't a huge one for our company. We work when the client tells us to, kind of thing. But from work from home companies, things like that again, you could get discriminatory pretty quickly. If I have somebody that aggravates me and because they never answer their phone and I don't have an hours operation, and I tell them, hey, you need to answer your phone between 8 and 4, let's say. And that's if you're doing your job and you're working remotely, I expect to be able to have contact with you. But I don't say that to somebody else, then they might go, hey, you're discriminating against me. This is a problem that you're just being hard on me. The other employees, you let them work whatever hours of the day they want, and you don't really. So you have to think about that. It's worth having a policy saying, hours of operation or attendance, punctuality. Dress code's kind of the same thing, that you think about it and you're like, well, everybody should have a collared shirt and a logoed shirt, or something that looks nice and represents our company well. If you don't write it down, again, you risk that somebody's going to think they're being discriminated at. So these are policies that are good to build standards around. Go through here. So this section here in this employer guide. We could talk about non-competes and stuff, but that gets, if you're in that world of non-competes, non-solicitations, copyrights, trade secrets, you probably need an attorney. That none of us are. You could go read these 5 or 6 pages on it, but you probably need to hire an attorney to help protect your company. But otherwise, there is some advice here on that. Wages and hour issues. Fair labor, obviously, we all know there's a minimum wage. We all know there's fair labor. We all know there's, if you're in the construction world and you're working on a government project, there's prevailing wages. Things like that need to be considered, just to be compliant. It's not as much maybe in your manual as it is just to be compliant, that you're understanding what you're doing. I do work hours for minors. I do know, had a contractor that the owner got involved on a construction project because his kids were running the equipment and were working on weekends and at nights, and his kids would come home from school and come over and would help build a road, and they were running excavators and stuff. And eventually the owner stepped in and said, hey, wait a second here, that your age doesn't allow you guys to work these amount of hours. And but anyway, something to think about, that you could easily accidentally have minors or family members or something, the young children maybe doing more than the law allows. And we might think it's okay. I might think it's okay, but it's still, you got to follow the laws or you may get in trouble. Employee status. So having policies on employee classifications, right? Part-time, full-time, what does all that actually mean? Is it full-time after 30 hours or 32 hours, or they get benefits after that, or having classifications that are also maybe different between executive level report or executive level employees versus more staff level, or exempt versus non-exempt employees. Things to all consider and have policies around, so that again you stay out of that world of not being equal as people are able to do their jobs. Time records, how do you do payroll, overtime, what day's payday, salary changes, all those are good. Employee benefits, paid time off, that's a big one too, that it seems simple, and it's actually one that we all are very, very aware of. We probably don't, maybe it's the employee's expectation that we get certain amounts of PTO, but you still should have that policy, because if you don't write it down and you accidentally even give people different amounts of PTO, that can lead you to trouble. Holidays, just good things people want to know about, time to vote. Some different things like bone marrow donations or funeral bereavement. Family Medical Leave Act, that's one that we all should know more about probably than we all do, but there are a lot of cases that somebody has the right to take, I think, up to 12 weeks off based on a sick family member or themselves being sick, or it falls in line, I think, with like the parental leave kind of thing, that all of those, but
Yeah,
you should have policy laid out.
Currently, this Family Medical Leave Act is only applicable to firms that have more than 50 employees.
Okay, good to know. So then we'll go back over to this document here in a minute, but so this kind of talks about what this is what our template looked like. Our actual one for employees is very similar, but we just give an update kind of on the company, and it just talks about some generalities, some nicety kind of things that explain the company and kind of how you operate. Ours, we go a little further into company history, talking about what kind of projects we work on and what the expectation is, and kind of what our company has been done in the past that kind of has led to success and led to, if you follow all of these guidelines, it's helped our company be successful. mission statement's always good. Maybe talk about that a hair that's a little off topic, but it's really good to have a mission statement, and it's kind of branding your company. And really, what is your philosophy, core principles? What are you thinking you're trying to deliver to your clients? And it seems simple, but I've worked even for large companies that they come up with this fancy mission statement. They build out these objectives, these keywords that they want their business to evolve around, and then we never hear about it again. Working there the whole year, you won't hear about it again. And then beginning of the year, towards the end of the year, we do another budget round, and they bring out our mission statement again, and we talk about what our philosophies are, and then it disappears. Where I think your company mission statement, your employees should hear about it all the time. And so as you hire employees to build the same goals and philosophies and the same morals that you want your employees to share, excuse me, that mission statement, I like to throw those words on meeting agendas for internal meetings. Use those words in all of your documents you create, and use them. So kind of use that mission statement to keep it in front of people constantly. That every chance you have to help your employee tie back what they do to your mission statement is going to make your client's experience, whether you're building something for somebody or doing consulting, but that client experience is important. That kind of, as I talked about earlier, that it's consistent. It motivates your employees, and they understand that if they're successful, that a lot of times your compensation is based on showing those core values that are listed in your mission statement and executing them. So just something that don't lose your mission statement.
Yeah, it's like establishing a culture for the company, corporate culture, sometimes it's referred to. And that's trying to be consistent across all your employees so that everybody's pointing in the same direction.
Yeah, and so I've done some work on branding with a previous employer, and the one kind of the same thing, that their concept of branding was, what does our logo look like? And my concept of branding is, what does your client remember when you're done working with them? Like, that's your brand, is what the people in their head remember and what they think of your company. That's your brand. It isn't what your logo looks like or anything, but what the experience that they take away and they're willing to tell somebody else, or willing to, or what they think, even if they're not willing to talk about it. That's your brand. And that all kind of ties back to the mission statement too, that when they're done working with you, that they're getting that very consistent experience, and that consistent experience that meets your expectations and as an owner or a leader in a company, that's going to really drive the next project success and the project after that. And that repeat work that really turns makes a lot of our jobs easy if we have good employees that are doing great work. Kind of off topic a little bit there, but I think with company mission statements, it's always worth talking about that a little bit on driving that home to your employees. If it's just you, it's easy. It's in your head. You do a great job. You're going to move forward successfully. But as you grow in people, it's more important to put more effort into aligning everybody, so you're constantly moving in the same direction together. We kind of went through all these topics, but you just kind of see this document isn't little. It's 38 pages long. It's a template for you guys to use. You have it as an example. It talks about, these are policies that have already been vetted by attorneys, but as you customize this to your business, it still doesn't hurt to have somebody else take a peek at it and make sure that you're not kind of putting yourself in a bind with things that maybe don't meet regulation or things that maybe aren't even enforceable or are likely to turn an employee off. If you pick something that you write something in here and they look at it, they might be like, wow, boy, I don't know why I'm really getting into this company. But so I'm going to move over to this other document a little bit more here. So this workplace issues. I went 10 years without having a single HR problem, and not that I've had one personally. And then, about 10 years ago now, 9 years ago, I think I had 9 or 10 people working for me, and you start getting into these. I had a drug and alcohol problem. I had sexual discrimination come up. I had, and so all of a sudden HR gets involved, right? And it's like, okay, well, what do you do? Well, this resource isn't a bad place. I mean, obviously, if something like that happens, you need to pull in a professional or something. But if you just look through, this guide, it talks a lot about federal laws that are behind it. Discrimination. Here's Minnesota's law. So, this guide that Ann put out for you guys, just a great resource. It's a lot of stuff. It's not in line with what we do on our day-to-day business, but it's definitely worth putting the time in to maybe you decide that, Saturday morning, I'm going to run through some of this for, every Saturday for 2 months till I get through it or something. Or just plow through it in a day if you want to. But, I at least, I haven't used this guide before, but when Ann sent it to me, I thought, and I told her this when she asked me to help with this, that every time you look at something like this, I learned something new. And so it's really worth getting into these, especially as small business. And most of us, again, are technical experts or, construction experts. HR isn't where our skills lie. Resources like this are definitely worth having around, and putting a little time into it. At least you might not remember a ton of it, but you'll remember that, hey, I have a source that talks about age discrimination, and I should be conscious of that in certain times. But that's a pretty good. Click on it, read about it. If you have certain areas that you've had challenges, or certain areas that, like I said, the first 10 years I never saw any problems, and then as I got more and more people working for me, a few of these different things did happen to pop up. Leave of absences, people that struggled to show up to work was one of them that I had, and they always had problems, sick problems or something. And a little bit of guidance goes a long way to understanding how you should deal with them consistently between employees, and deal with them in a way that's meets all laws and requirements and is non-discriminatory.
And then if I could add, this, you got it down here at the bottom there, workers' compensation. If you have employees that are injured on the job, there's all kinds of rules and regulations associated with getting them treated and reporting the injury and so forth. So those kinds of things this is a really good resource to show what happens. Like, here's actions to be taken by the employer in case of an injury. There's time requirements on when you report it. It's got to be, I believe it's got to be reported within 24 hours and so forth. And then workers' comp requires an annual report on what kinds of claims the company has had over that period of time, and that impacts then your workers' comp premiums that are deducted from your payroll. So a lot of those things have to be considered when you're operating under those rules.
Hi, Doug. Tracy, if I could interrupt at this time, just wanted to ask, or just kind of put this thought out there, in regards to whether it's discrimination or an injury on the job. Early on, we talked about your own employees versus a 1099, or even a subcontractor that's under your management and guidance. What happens if you have a 1099 out on a work site and they've been discriminated against? How does that work with a 1099, or let's say a subcontractor that you've hired? How do you handle that?
So I would tell you that a 1099 is going to operate just like an employee, that you're required to investigate it. Either way, you're required. If it's a job that you're under, you're the supervisor of that job, your company is running that aspect of the job. regardless of who, and there's discrimination regardless of who it is, your company is responsible for getting to the bottom of it. And it has to be very private. You have to really be careful about different types of discrimination that you might not even be able to disclose who was discriminated against to the people that you're trying to get information from, or I definitely can't share that with random people. But a 1099 or a subcontractor, and I have been involved in a subcontractor before with a discrimination issue, and we were required to investigate it just like it was our own employee, and we were the prime on the contract, so I think that's kind of what drove it. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to discrimination or a lot of these policies, a 1099 worker or a subcontractor would fall under. You don't get to discriminate against them because of their employment status or how they're laid out. I don't know if that answers your question exactly, Tracy, but
Yeah, I think that was helpful. And just to kind of keep in mind, whether it's a subcontractor or 1099, or they're, like you say, treated like your own employee. And I think you guys provided some great resources there. The Minnesota Department of Human Rights, of course, is our leaders in the discrimination. So if you have questions, they're also there for guidance as well.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. So health and safety, Jeff talked about that. Kind of, this one actually even talks about terminations, reduction in force, plant closings, termination process. You get up earlier in this document, and there's a bunch of information about problems that you can have. This section here kind of talks through that termination piece and the release agreement. And, this is one that our payroll company has helped us with. Like I said, Jeff and I worked through one last fall that was, they help with the legal aspect of it, but this is pretty good guidelines that you can follow. Unemployment compensation insurance, it's something you guys all will have to learn about. You got to log into their website. I know Jeff showed us that a few weeks ago, or when he talked about insurances, looked at the unemployment insurance, and get a log into a website. You have to log in information when people go on unemployment, if they do, what does it take them to be eligible? This kind of runs through a lot of that information, which is, again, just a good resource. Safe and sick time ordinances. So there are a couple of different, and there's Minneapolis, St. Paul here, but it's interesting to think through different areas have different ordinances. So if you're working in Minneapolis, ordinance of many purposes, trying to think where the benefit is. So if you have 6 or more employees, you must provide employees with paid, they call SST time, which is sick and safe time. I don't remember if it gives a employer must allow employees to take incremental consistent with industry and employer standards, but such increments should not be more than 4 hours, or not be. That's weird. It almost reads backwards, but shouldn't be less than 4 hours probably. But if you have more than 6 employees, you have certain requirements. 5 employees, you don't have to pay them. 6 or more employees, it's paid. Something to think about.
So if your company has a policy that meets all these requirements, that's the better way to do it. But if you didn't have a policy and you're working within the city limits of Minneapolis, then you have to be aware of this requirement from the city.
And Jeff, does our personal time off policy covers this, right?
Yes, it does.
So if you're giving your employees PTO of some sort, then this covers it. not of some sort, I guess, but at least enough PTO to meet the minimum requirements here.
Mhm.
So here it talks about they get 1 hour for every 30 hours worked, up to 48 hours per calendar year. So there's the numbers kind of. But something interesting to think about, that there are unique requirements for different cities and different counties, and if you stay in the same area, you probably keep on top of them. But if you tend to move between cities or states, depending on chasing big jobs or something to definitely think about. So kind of like I said earlier, in a random way, we've covered all the slides. Oop, and then I lost it. So there are these links in the slideshow. Department of Revenue talks about it. We didn't go through this in detail, but Form I-9s to verify eligibility to work in the United States. A W-4, which talks about their withholding and the right amount of income tax to withhold from their paychecks. And then you have to report your new hires to state reporting agency within 20 days. So you're required to stay on top of this paperwork. Your I-9s you should have on the first day of work. The withholdings also in that first week before you do your first round of payroll. Obviously, you need some basic things like you need social security card and proof of identification and some things like that. Yep. So options for managing, like we said, you learn it yourself. You could hire someone out or hire someone to do it internally or outsource it. Now, most of us, we probably have people that kind of bridge multiple hats, those small companies, and whether that's us doing it or whether that's hiring a good admin person that can maybe do the meat and potatoes of it, and then we get involved in the bigger picture for the bigger items, or even maybe one step further where you just outsource it. And we do a fair amount of it internally, but our outsource to our payroll company is where most of it ends up going. Employee handbook, we went through that. So yeah, so what kind of questions do people have? We're always full of questions here. Online presentations are tough to. The next couple of these are in person, and I think you guys you'll benefit more with interaction if you can try to be there in person, because then we can draw more information out of you, and even off to the side or during the presentations get more specific to how you guys are want to learn about running your own business and what challenges you might have that we could help specifically address.
And then, we want to again offer that if you have a specific need and you want to talk to us one-on-one about your particular business, we're more than willing to do that. We have several. Go ahead.
I'm going to help you put a plug in for that. So if I need an employee handbook, I know you gave me a guide. Yep. Can I meet with you and you help me walk through what my employee guide for my specific work industry would look like? Yep. And maybe a safety plan too. So yeah. So I think, yeah, this is what we're here for. All of this is free. You can meet with these experts who have been in the industry, who know that. Please reach out and just sign up for a one-on-one with Jeff or Ross or both. And please take advantage of that. And then I think we put plugs in for our networking event. I did put that link in the chat. And I think we're going to be talking how to build your team and network, and then, the subcontracting piece as well. So absolutely join us for that. Sign up as soon as you can. If you have any questions, our team is here to support you as well. So thank you again for attending. I'm going to pass it back to you. I don't see anybody in the chat or any hands raised. So
no, nothing more there.
Yeah, maybe real quick, there's one more resource that we did give you that I won't go through in any amount of detail. It's a really good checklist just for supervisor's checklist for new employees. It has some decent links to it that go to state websites. It's a couple pages long. Like I said, a lot of what we already covered is in here. It also has a few different things, but like insurance webpage, some external, internal stuff for exploring deed and a few different things that they're good resources that if you have the time, this kind of puts it together in a little bit more concise format. But yeah, thanks everybody. I think hopefully added some value. Hopefully you got 2 or 3 ideas in your head of something that's worth researching or something worth learning more about. Or maybe you have a lot of ideas in your head and you need help organizing those thoughts. That's as Tracy said, that's what we're here for. So feel free to reach out to Tracy or Jeff and I. We can definitely, or Ann, we definitely put something together as a team to help your businesses grow efficiently. And maybe I'm sure that it's been said in a lot of these training classes, but the goal of this is a lot of us have gone through a lot of, probably Ann and Jeff, a great example, have gone through building a business and have made lots of mistakes. And the goal with all this training is that you guys don't make the same mistakes, that we provide resources, provide help that gets your business to where you want to go more efficiently. And so just, ask questions and definitely here to work with you.
One area I don't think I missed it, but we didn't really talk much about firing an employee. I don't think we can get into it now, but is that going to be in maybe one of the upcoming classes? Or can I just meet with you one-on-one if I want to talk about, I have an issue with my employee and how to fire them and document?
I think it's probably best to meet one-on-one. It doesn't happen very often. And so I don't know if it warrants a specific class on that, but like Ross says, we had one recently that we had to deal with. And I think if you have that situation, want to reach out, we can help you through that process.
Yeah, definitely. We can help with whether it's some termination letters or documentation or kind of what that looks like. On page, I think it's 135 here. So it's 135 there, but it's 129 on the actual page numbers. There is about 5 or 6 pages on going through a termination and kind of what the laws are, what the requirements are. But we're definitely willing to help you out and walk through it, and kind of it's more of a case-by-case basis. Hopefully if you're moving a lot of people, terminating a lot of people, that you're in a low skill situation usually where it's less likely to encounter a lot of problems with it. You just need a consistent process developed then. But yeah, Tanya, good question. But I go to that manual to start with, and then from there, kind of, we can help you navigate through it.
All right. Well, thanks everyone again from me, and we hope to hear from you in person if you have a specific need.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Ross, you can hit the stop recording button.